In a previous Excel tutorial on constructing stem and leaf plots, I showed you how to go about taking a number that has more than two number places and modify it so that it can be put into a form that we can easily construct then a stem and leaf plot from. For example, the data we used in that previous tutorial, tutorial number 4 on stem and leaf plots we'll use again, has information on housing prices, and you'll see the range. The minimum value is $111,000. The maximum value is $725,000. Now, what I showed you to do in the previous tutorial is to simply take the value, for example, 111,000, and using the left function, comma, highlight the cell where the value is currently entered, comma, and 2. What this we showed you will take then what is entered in cell B2 and report only the two leftmost characters, in this case 1 and 1, the 11 out of 111,000. And this works also if we have character information. I'm just going to copy this all the way down, and you'll see that we are losing something when we trim in this way. It worked fine for when you have a value such as $111,000. We've got nothing really to round up from the thousands place. But you take the value for house number 88, 725,000, to merely trim that and keep only the two leftmost characters in that number or number places, we're left with 72. While sometimes what we'll see, we would want to keep that information that is in the thousands and maybe round up then to 73,000. If you move up to, for example, house number 84, to just use the trim, we're trimming everything after the 47 there at the beginning, which means we're losing the 7,500 information. Maybe what we want to do is round that up to 48. And the same thing if we go for house number 82. Round that up to 47, because right now everything to the left of that second digit, to the right of that second digit rather, is being just lopped off. So let's go ahead and demonstrate how we can first of all round the number up to the place that we're interested in keeping our information, to the level of precision that we want. Before we trim, so I'm going to create a column, I'll call it rounded, indicate the numbers are rounded. And what we're going to introduce now is the round function. Simply type in round, left parenthesis, click on or type in then the information you want to round, comma, and now indicate the number of digits you want to round to. Now the way in which the number of digits works, imagine that you have then a number that is 111,000.46. When we think about the numbers that we add in here for the number of digits, if we had a decimal of 0.16 and we put in 1, it's going to round to the first decimal place. Instead, if we have more decimals beyond that and put in a number 2, it'll round out to the second decimal place. What we have instead are numbers that are whole numbers. We don't have decimals here. So in that case, we have to move the cursor to, in essence, the left, if you think of it this way, of what the decimal place would be. In that case, if we type in a -1, what that will do then is round the units number, so the last level of precision we have then would be the tens number. If we put in -2, it's going to round off to the hundreds, so we're losing the precision that the tens and ones gives us. What we have here instead is information that is to the 100,000ths place. We want to keep precision only up to the 10,000ths place. That means we'll have two number places to actually work with for a stem and leaf plot, which we know how to handle that. In that case, what I want to do is round off the 4 number digits then, round off the 4th number here, or that would be then the thousands number, going from ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. I want to round off at the thousands place. In that case, what I'll be left with will only be then the two leftmost numbers, that being the 100,000s and 10,000s in terms of precision. Hit enter and pull that down, and you notice what happens here. Obviously we have no information beyond the for the first cell. Rather, we have that information of 1,000 in the 1,000ths place, while we don't round that up when we then are only keeping to the 10,000ths place, so we end up with 110,000. If I copy this all the way down a little further, you'll notice here that if we go down, for example, to house number 14, that has now rounded up to 22. Before we rounded and just trimmed, we would be left with the number 21. Now it rounds up to 22, just like it rounds up house number 13 from 21,000 up to 22,000. So that's what rounding does. I can show you what happens now if we round up to 5, the 5th digit. So all we're left with is a level of precision then that we have in the 100,000ths place. And you notice now 219,000 becomes just the 200,000. We see up here 209,000 becomes just the 200,000, and so on. So what we want to do here then, let me delete that and start again. We want to round off the 4th number from the to the left of the decimal, so we're left with only the 5th and 6th number place. So equal, round, highlight the cell, it has information you want to round, comma, and we'll put -4, and that's going to round off the 4 digits then that are immediately to the left of the decimal, so we're only left, level of precision will be at the 10,000ths place, which is what we want. I'm going to copy that all the way down, and you'll see then what we're left with. 725,000 becomes 730,000, 495,000 becomes 500,000, 477,500 becomes 480,000. So that's the idea of rounding. Let's now also trim this information down to only two numbers places. Equal, I'll use the left function. Click to highlight the data range or the cell which the information is in. Comma 2, and that's going to only keep the 2 leftmost characters. Hit enter, which is what we want, and we'll come all the way down here to trim then the rounded information for all of our houses. Now we can go about constructing our formula for the leaves. Equal, it's the repeat function that we have here, open parenthesis, and I want to repeat a value of 0, comma, and now I indicate the criterion. I'll use the COUNTIF function, and I'm going to make the data range the trimmed values, the rounded and trimmed values that we have here. And I'll go back up now after a comma, and now I want to specify the value of the stem times 10. Now why is it times 10? Because now we're left off with trim values that are to the tens place, tens and ones, times 10 plus, now what would the 1 be for the very first leaf? It would be a value of 0, and that's going to then repeat a 0 every time one of the values in this data range is equal to 10. Now I'm going to make this a fixed reference for the data range, and we'll see that there are no zeros here, no tens rather, in our entire trim data range, so there's nothing to plot yet. Ampersand, because I want to put in a long list now of repeat functions, and what I'll do with these repeat functions is just merely change what is the character I want to repeat every time a particular then value is reported. Put my ampersand between my repeat functions. Now I want to repeat a 2 every time there is a 12, ampersand, and I want to repeat a 3 every time there is a 13 that shows up, and repeat a 4 every time a 4 shows up, repeat a 5 every time there is a 15 in the data range. So now I'm just constructing the formula here for the stem and leaf plot as we've done in previous tutorials. A 6 every time there's a 16, ampersand, a 7 every time there's a 17, ampersand, paste, an 8 every time there's an 18, ampersand, we have one more leaf here to specify. We'll repeat a 9 every time there is a 19. Now I'm going to quickly look at 9, 9, 8, 8, 7, 7, where's the 7? Right there, 6, 6, making sure that my criterion matches the value I repeat. Oh, I left out here an ampersand between those two repeat functions. So it's always good, I think, to go back and do a quick check of your data, of your formulas rather, to make sure that you haven't made an obvious mistake. And if there are other mistakes here, Excel is going to indicate that there's an error, but everything else looks okay for what I can see. Let me hit enter, and yes, it does work, so it works properly. Now, since I have then the fixed reference for the data range, all I need to do then is copy those values down, and there is what we see, the stem and leaf plot now that has been, first of all, rounded off to the second most numbered place, and that being at 10,000s, and then we trim the values then, so we only are left with the two leftmost numbers in our values to construct our stem and leaf plot. Now, if this were me, I still would not be happy that there's so many cases that fall into the stem for 2 and 3. Those are the $200,000 and $300,000 range. So I would split the stems at least in half, so that each stem only has then 5 leaves in it, which I've done over here previously before I started recording this tutorial. And this would be the stem and leaf plot then that I would want to report. Shows a nice distribution, but in any case, what we had to first of all is take a number that had more than 2 number places. I then rounded it off to the second most, the second number place from the left, and then I trimmed everything after that, and that allowed me then to easily construct my stem and leaf plot as we have in the past in Excel.